This week, I'm delighted to say that I'm talking to Helen Tattersall. Helen, it's great to be able to have a chance just to hear a little bit of your story and talk to you as both a mum and a daughter on Mother's Day. I know that you've sort of pretty much grown up in the life of the church, but it'd be great to hear how your faith really came alive and real for you personally.
I suppose the time when things really became a bit more real for me was doing GCSEs and A-levels. I found it a really stressful time, quite difficult. And so, I started reading my Bible more. Really, the text was coming alive for me, and I felt like it was written just for me, really, for my situation. But I suppose the first real test for me of my faith was in 1999. So Steve's dad unfortunately passed away then. It was a really difficult and traumatic time for the family. Obviously came as a great shock. We really had to push into God. For the week that he was in hospital after the accident, I was praying so much. I thought, if I prayed so much, then actually God would hear my prayers and heal him and restore his health. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And that was, a real shock to everybody and really difficult to handle. I think I was in my early 20s at the time. And I think for the first couple of weeks afterwards, I was really angry with God, and I just couldn't understand why he'd let it happen. I decided that I wasn't going to pray anymore because I just didn't see the point. And so I went on like that for a couple of weeks. But actually, after that time, after a couple of weeks of not praying, I realised that even though I still didn't understand why God had let it happen, I couldn't actually go on my life without praying. It was, something that I needed to talk to God to get me through life's difficult times. So, I suppose that really taught me just that things in life can happen. We don't understand why, they're really rubbish. But actually we still need to make that decision just to trust him and to have faith in him.
Yeah. And as you look back, would you say there have been any other particular significant things, especially for you? I mean, that obviously was fairly significant in terms of you really landing and choosing to put your trust in him, but more generally in terms of your ongoing growth and walk with God, any other things that you'd say are specifically significant?
Unfortunately, there are lots of difficult experience that I've come up with, but I think that is the time when our faith often grows the most. So 7 years after Steve's dad died, unfortunately, his mum also passed away. Again, a really difficult time for the family. And at the time, me and Steve had a 12-week-old, which was Daniel. So we were new parents. I was obviously grieving. I was supporting Steve in his grief. That was really difficult. And again, I was frustrated and I didn't understand why God had let this now happen as well. And for a long time, I thought, I don't understand why God let Steve's mum die at the same time that we had our firstborn. And it just seemed just not right at all. But it was several years later that I realised that actually God let Daniel be born at that time because we were going through a really difficult time. And actually having Daniel as a blessing and new life, in the darkest of times was actually, something that he had planned on purpose. And I just saw it from a completely different perspective. And I suppose another significant event, again, it's not a very cheery one, but God definitely came through for our family. My dad, he's always been a shining example in his faith, but unfortunately he was diagnosed with dementia in 2014, and shortly afterwards he was in hospital for over a year, which, I won't go into details, but it was one of the most horrendous experiences, I've ever been through, and it was really difficult, but we just trusted in God, and we knew that actually if we put our faith in him, that he would bring us through. And despite professionals saying that my dad would never come home again, we prayed and we prayed. And as a family, we would sort of drive around the hospital building, asking God to just, to free my dad from this situation. And, eventually God did win and my dad came home. So again, it was just another example of difficult times, but God's with us, and actually God's faithfulness, that he is always there, however hard things might be.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you sharing some of that stuff, Helen. And it's Mother's Day today. First of all, you're a daughter to Jean, and just what you appreciate about your mum.
Mum's really good at seeing a need and filling it without really being asked. I suppose the biggest thing that I would say that I, really admire in her is her faith. She's very single-minded in just doing God's will and hearing from God and doing what he says. And I think though her circumstances have changed and, she has been through lots of difficult times herself, that actually her faith has remained unchanged, that she puts her trust in him. She brings everything to him, big or small, and gives it over to God, and that's something that I, really admire and want to kind of follow in that example.
Fantastic. As a mum now yourself, what would you say are the things that maybe just you especially enjoy as a mum, and then maybe some of the things that you find particularly challenging as a mum?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of good points about being a mum. I do love it. It's a really rewarding role. I love being able to share some of the things that I'm interested in with the kids. So I love baking, as lots of people know. And so just, doing that kind of thing together with them is something that I love to do. I also love just, I guess now they're older, just being able to talk to them about things like stuff that's going on in the world and just about their faith, about stuff that we do at church. It's, I really like that they're understanding more now and want to kind of know more. So I really enjoy that. And just seeing them grow in their faith is great. It just can be something really small, like, perhaps they've prayed out loud for the first time, or they've told me that they've prayed about something difficult they're going through, or they've understood just a little bit more about Jesus. So yeah, that's probably the things that I really love about being a mum.
Very good. What were some of the hardest things, do you think?
I guess for me, I would say the hardest thing is just feeling like I'm not good enough, just, comparing to other people and feeling like I don't measure up. Facebook's not very helpful for that kind of thing. And just, you know, that feeling of not really knowing what you're doing, that it starts off when you have a newborn thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, and you kind of get the hang of one phase and then another phase starts and you then, don't know what you're doing again, or just that feeling of, I don't know what I'm doing. But actually, I know those things again push me into God, because parenting really definitely pushes me more into God.
Helen, just really appreciate being able to get a bit of an insight into your life, and we really appreciate who you are. So thanks for sharing today.
Oh, thank you.